This video is the second part to my tutorial on Packetbeat. In the first video, I showed how to install, configure, set up, and secure Packetbeat. I also demonstrate some of the Packetbeat dashboards that give you insight into your infrastructure's network activities. So if you don't know how to do any of that yet, I will leave a link to the first video in the description of this video. For this video, I will start by exploring some of the other Packetbeat dashboards. Then I will explain how to email ourselves an alert if there are any unusual network activities. I will demonstrate this with a simple example that monitors excessive HTTP error responses from a web server. By the end of this video, you should have a good grasp of what Packetbeat can do, how to use Kibana Alert Rules, and how to use an open source tool called Logstash to send emails. While watching this video, if you find the contents helpful, then help us out by pressing the like button. And if you want to be informed of new videos as we release them, then press the subscribe button. So let's get started by exploring more Packetbeat dashboards. Then later, let's set up rules that email us of any unusual network activities. From our previous video, we saw that the overview dashboard and the flows dashboard, which is this one here, overview dashboard, and the flows dashboard. These two dashboards are immediately populated when we install Packetbeat because they just come default with the installation of Packetbeat. But other dashboards, let's say for example, the HTTP transaction dashboards or the MySQL dashboards, these start off empty because we don't have any services that are actually installed on any of our servers that use HTTP or MySQL at this point in time. So if I load them up, you can see that the HTTP dashboards are empty and MySQL also no results at this point in time. So let's do something simple like install a web server to a server that has Packetbeat on it to convince ourselves that Packetbeat can track HTTP transactions. And then later in the video, we can set up email notifications whenever our web server experiences errors beyond thresholds that we define. And it's easy to repeat the same setup for any other service like MySQL, Postgres, and others. But since a web server is quite common, we will just start with that. So let me pull up these two windows here. And these two windows are SSH connections to one of my servers in California and another test server in Australia. And we'll install Apache 2 to both these servers because Apache is just a very popular web server and we'd be able to use that to generate HTTP data across our network. So I'll install it to both of these and we'll give it a moment. Okay, it looks like things are installed. And now if I take the IP addresses of these servers, I should be able to just plop them into the web browser and see the Apache default page. So if I do this and I paste it in here, great, the default page loaded up and I'll start another window and do the same thing. If I take the IP address here and paste it into this over here, and there we go. So now we see the default Apache page load up. And if I press refresh on this a few times, just to make sure we get a few more hits on these pages, and then I come back to this HTTP dashboard here, if I hit refresh, great. Sometimes it might take a minute or so for the data to show up, but it looks like it shows up in our dashboards pretty quickly. Right? And another way to confirm that Packetbeat is sending the HTTP data to Kibana is if you click on the Discover tab here. And we can also search by, let's say, network.protocol. And if we search for HTTP, there we go, we get 20 hits here. Or the other way is to look at destination.port 80. Because port 80 is the default web port for Apache. So we can see that data is coming in here as we speak. Now, one of the more interesting visualizations is maybe the error counts over here, like both these graphs here, maybe more specifically this one. This one is showing, let me see if I can, what does it say? It's saying there's been 4 hits to this website that generated a 404 not found. And I guess maybe there's like a fab icon or something that it can't seem to find. The other thing we can do is, just type in actual URLs that don't exist. I'll do the same over here. And I'm going to reload this a few times. And I'll do that here as well. And I think in a moment, what we'll see is this count go up. So let's refresh this for a moment. Yep, there you go. You can see that there have been a lot more errors that are occurring. And if you want to know how any of these visualizations are created, you can normally just click the ellipses here. Usually I click on Edit Visualization, but maybe under Inspect. Actually, you know what? I'll actually hit Edit instead. Or I hit Edit from the page earlier. Just click on Edit, and now you should have this option here, Edit Visualization. And you can see that this graph was generated by a query saying network.protocol is HTTP and the HTTP response code is not in the 200 series. So you could actually generate the same query here and get the same results. So if I do network.protocol is HTTP and network HTTP response status code let's do not is greater than equal to 200 and HTTP response status code is less than 300, and I believe that should give us the same number of, there we go, 21 hits in the last 15 minutes, which would be very similar to the result sets that we're getting over here. And that's pretty much all there is to these dashboards. They're pretty straightforward for Packetbeat. So the next thing we should do is maybe we should start working with email alerts. And I think a good email alert would be something that revolves around these HTTP error codes. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on this menu icon. I'm going to go to Stack Management. Then we'll click on Rules and Connectors. So we'll let it load. And now you'll see this page here. The Rules and Connectors area is a place where you can specify conditions for Kibana to look out for. And those conditions can be anything about Elastic or Kibana. And those conditions can also trigger notifications and actions. Now, because this is a new installation of Kibana and Elastic, I'm getting instructions here saying that additional setup is required. And that additional setup is basically, we need to add this property to our kibana.yaml file. And this property needs to have a string that's at least 32 characters. So let me just type this in like that. So that's 10 characters, 20, 30, and I'll just do this. Now you want this encryption key to be a bit more secure and hard to guess. I'm just keeping it simple like this for now, for demonstration purposes. Now, if I go to my Kibana server, so this terminal window is my Kibana server, and if I go to the Kibana file, cd etc Kibana, and if I open up this kibana.yaml file, and I added this line to anywhere in this document and restart Kibana, this would fully enable my rules and connectors area. But because this 32, or in this case 34 character string is supposed to be a secret, I'm going to use the key store instead to store this property value. So if I go to the binary folder of the Kibana directory in share USR, I can do Kibana key store add, and we're going to take this property here, hit enter. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I just typing mistake. Let's do this. All right. So add this property, and it's going to prompt me to paste in the value. So I'll take this. And just by doing this, we've effectively added the XPack encrypted saved object.encryption key property to the Kibana configuration. And now I just have to restart Kibana. And let's see if it took the change. Okay, so all infos, no errors so far. And if I come here, if I hit refresh, okay, so it might take a minute, so I'll pause for a moment. Okay, it looks like Kibana has fully restarted now. Now if I log in, and now we're ready to start creating our first rule. Let's create our first rule. The rule being, we want to be notified if there are too many HTTP errors. So I'll click on create rule, and we'll give our rule a name. I'll just call it HTTP errors. We'll check every 2 minutes, and I'll notify on check interval, meaning we will evaluate this rule every 2 minutes, and if it's true, then send the notification. Okay, so the rule type, there are many different ways to specify a rule. We are going to use Elasticsearch query type, and we'll use KQL. And I like using the Elasticsearch query because it's very flexible. So we might as well use it. And here we're going to define our query. We're going to look in Packetbeat index, and the query we want to use is the one that we actually defined over here. So whenever we have network protocol HTTP and the response code is outside of the 200 series. So I'll copy this rule and I'll paste it in here. Okay. Now, if this query returns results that's more than, let's say we have more than 2 results in the past 2 minutes, then it means that this rule is active. And if this query returns more than 100 results, then we'll just take the top 100 results. All right, so you can adjust this here. It's just that the more results you return, the more memory and the more data transfer you need to do. So if you don't need that many results, you can reduce the size. But for now, we'll keep it at 100. Now we can test this query. All right, nothing in the last 2 minutes. But if I hit refresh on this a few times, and I'll do this again, I believe in a few seconds, this query, there we go, we got some results. So I'll just press save for now, just to establish the rule. So this rule is pending. I'm going to press refresh. Okay, so the rule is active. The other state it could be on is okay. So okay means that your rule is running fine, but active means your rule is running fine and it's being triggered because in this case, we're seeing more than two HTTP errors in the past 2 minutes. So that's why this is active. But if I hit refresh again, or let me pause for a moment, maybe I'll pause for a minute or so. Okay, that was about a minute or 2 minutes or so. And you can see that the last response is now back to okay, meaning that this rule has recovered. Okay, but of course, if I come back over here, I'll hit refresh a few times on this and maybe a few times on this. And in a moment, this should become active again. Okay, I waited for actually 2 minutes, and you can see that now the status is active again. So now we know that this rule is running fine. Let me click on edit for this rule again, because if I scroll down, under the actions area, this is the final thing that we could have set. So under actions, there's this button here that says email connector. And if we had the gold license, actually the gold license has been discontinued, so you need the platinum license. If we had the platinum license, we can actually use the email connector to email ourselves these alerts as they happen in Kibana. That way we don't actually have to log into Kibana to find these alerts. We can get it in our emails. But as mentioned, email connector requires the platinum license. So that's not something that's available in the free version of Kibana and Elastic. But as your needs grow for Elasticstack, I strongly recommend you get the platinum license because it opens up a lot of other features. But for now, what we'll do is we'll use the server log connector, because what the server log connector will do is that it will publish the alerts that we see every time this rule is active. Server log will publish the alert to the kibana.log file on our Kibana server. And then later we can use an open source tool called logstash to ingest the kibana.log file and relay those alerts to our email. And this server log connector comes with the free version of Elastic and Kibana, so we might as well use it. So for now, I'm going to click on this server log connector. I'll go ahead and create a connector, and we can call it anything we want. Now I'll just say, you know what, I'll just call server log connector, and you can call it anything you want, anything that's meaningful to you. I'll just press save. All right, one of the things that we should choose is the level, and I'll pick air. It is completely up to you what level you want to pick. Whatever level you pick, it is associated with this query that we defined up here. And so that when the rule publishes the results to kibana.log file, the level you picked gets tagged along with it. And when we use logstash later to ingest the kibana.log file, this level becomes a convenient way to filter records if we need to do any additional data transformation before emailing ourselves a notification. So what level you pick just depends on what this query means to you within your context. Now, because we're dealing with HTTP errors, I'll just say that this is an error level. Next, this is the message that we will actually be publishing to our kibana.log file. The variables in here are explained in this pop-up over here. And you can see that there are many variables that we can choose from that we can put into our message. But for now, I actually have a message prepared in advance. So let me just copy and paste that in here. Okay, so this is the message that we will publish to our kibana.log file. And one of the more interesting variables is this context.hits variable, which is basically the results that come back from this query, because we can later use logstash to parse out interesting information in those results that we can then append to the body of our email. Okay, so let's press save. And I'm going to now generate a few more errors. So I'll press refresh, refresh, refresh a few times on this, and maybe a few times on this server as well. And then I'll wait a couple of minutes to see if this response goes active. Okay, it looks like our response is now active. So that means only when this state is active are the results published to our kibana.log file. So I'm going to go to my Kibana server, and I've opened up an SSH connection to my Kibana server. And if I go to the var log Kibana directory, and in here, there's the kibana.log file. And if I open that up and I scroll down, I will see there we go. I think these are the hits that came back from the alert, and I can already see the message here, which was the message that we pasted into our rule over here. All right, so now the server log connector is publishing the results to our kibana.log file. Now, let's install an open source tool called Logstash to this Kibana server, since it is this server that has the kibana.log file. This way, Logstash can ingest the kibana.log file and relay the alerts to us via email. If we go to the Elastic website and find the installations for Logstash, you'll see that it has the same dependencies as installing Kibana, which is get this public signing key, install this dependency, update our repository to use some of the repositories for Elastic, and followed by the install Logstash. Now, because my Kibana server already completed these 3 steps, I just simply have to run this last command. But if you don't have these dependencies done, just copy each of these commands and paste it into your command line and run them, and then run this as the final command. So I'm going to just run this final command here. And in a moment, Logstash should be installed. Okay, Logstash has been installed and we're ready to start using it. To tell Logstash to read the Kibana log file and send emails, we need to define those instructions through configuration details. So I'm going to create a file called logstash.conf, but you can call it anything you want, really. And I'm going to paste in the instructions that I've already prepared in advance. Okay. And I will leave a link in the description of this video for you to download the same file in case you find it useful. Now, this file is almost the same as the one from the Metricbeat tutorial, so if you want to learn line by line how this file works, I'll leave a link in the description of this video showing you exactly which part of the Metricbeat tutorial to watch. But if you're not interested in learning line by line how this works, you can basically use this file as is. But before you do, let me give you a very quick overview and also explain where it differs from the Metricbeat tutorial. This top block over here is called the input stage, and every Logstash configuration pipeline must have at least one input stage. And my input stage is simply saying, read this var log kibana.log file as a JSON object and start from the beginning of the file or where the last ingestion took place. Now, coming down to the bottom of the file is another mandatory stage, which is called the output stage. So every Logstash configuration pipeline must have at least one output stage. And my output stage is simply saying, if the record that has been ingested has a log level of error. So if you come back to our rule, you recall that we made the log level error. So if it is error, then we are going to trigger these 2 output plugins, right? There's an email output plugin and the standard out plugin. So the email simply just relays the alerts to this SMTP server called Mailtrap, and the standard out will just simply output this variable to the terminal window. Now in production, you may want to just comment this out or completely delete this. I leave it here for this demonstration so we can also confirm right away if Logstash is running the way we expect it to. Now, in terms of this email block over here, this email output plugin, we're connecting to Mailtrap with these connection settings here, sending to this user and from this user. This is the subject, this email body. Oh, we actually need to type in the username and password to connect to our Mailtrap account. So let me pull that up. Okay, so we're using Mailtrap as our SMTP server because it's great for development. Any emails that come in here stay in here. They won't accidentally reach out to real users. So I'm going to take this username and paste it in here. Take this password, paste it in here. Okay, and that pretty much configures our output stage. Now, in terms of what email we're actually sending, we're sending this variable, metadata.email body, or actually it's more correctly known as an event data field as opposed to variable. Now, the email body event data field is actually defined in an optional stage up here, which we call the filter stage. Okay, so the filter stage is used as a way to transform some of the data that comes in from the input stage, and you can massage it, create some additional event data fields before going to the output stage. So let's just quickly go over what this optional filter stage is doing. So this filter block is going to use a grok to parse the Kibana.log file and create some new variables like alerts name, conditions met, link, and also all those Elastic query results gets loaded into this variable called hit list. These few blocks here are just doing some JSON manipulation, converting them to actual JSON objects of sorts. And then we have some Ruby code. Now, I'm not a Ruby developer, just quickly slap this together. In fact, some of this code, well, actually, compared to the Metricbeat tutorial, a lot of this code has been replaced. All I'm doing is I'm constructing a string and assigning it to a variable called email body. And this string will eventually look like something, it'll look something like this, where conditions met, a link to Kibana where you can review the alert and the details that cause that alert. And then for any HTTP errors, we'll kind of sort it by the server name, give the actual error code and the number of times that particular error code occurred. So that's what this email body string will eventually look like. And to construct that, I just have a couple of nested for loops to iterate through all the results that actually came back from this query, so that I can form this kind of string over here. And once that variable email body has been created, I am basically assigning this value to an event data field in Logstash called metadata.emailBody. And that's why that email body is available here. So that's all that is. And we can basically use this now. So to use this file, we just simply run our logstash command, which is in the usr share logstash binary, and then this logstash command, -f for file. And then we need to state the absolute path to our logstash.configuration detail file. All right, now I'll just run this and just give it a moment for it to load up. Okay, things have loaded up, and you can see that we had a standard output plugin, which is showing us some of the debug information here. And you can see that 2 emails were sent already because they were in the Kibana.log file and they were never sent in the first place. So it was backlogged and sent out now. And if I go to my mail trap, all right, we can see this one over here. All right, so there we go. We're getting emails of the actual HTTP errors that occurred every time the rule is triggered. Actually, let's do a quick test. I'm going to come back over here. Let's just reload this a few times to make sure that this email will occur within the next 2 minutes when the rule is fired. Let me clear this out. All right, and I'll pause for a moment until it shows up. And here we go. So we got the email. Yep, and here are the email details. This concludes our tutorial on Packetbeat. If you found it useful, then consider giving us a like. And if you want to stay updated with the videos as we release them, then subscribe to our channel.